Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new episode of Iblis Manifestations Podcast. This is going to be a very special one. I figured we have made it 40 episodes into this podcast, so why not celebrate that with a very special guest who might have actually just been one of the pioneers of the thing that we know as death metal. My guest here today, ladies and gentlemen, is none other than Mr. John McEntee from the American death metal band Incantation. This was a fantastic conversation, and it was truly fascinating to actually get the perspective of someone who has lived and breathed metal for so many decades, through many different twists and turns, and yet still is here and is kicking ass. We talked about a lot of the different aspects of just metal in general, some of the history of Incantation, and obviously his work with his previous band, which used to be around in the late 80s. We got to talk about a lot of that and obviously how things have changed over time. It was overall a very rewarding conversation, and I'm sure it'll be just as rewarding to listen to, particularly for the true diehard metalheads out there. So yeah, coming shortly will be that, and of course, thank you very much for tuning in to Iblis Manifestations, for listening to the podcast. If you are new here, happy to let you know that we have a lot of conversations like this that are usually minimum hour long, up to 3 hours, and we have these with very special artists, mainly from within the underground, who really have a unique and powerful perspective over not just their own art, but over life and other things in general. So feel free to subscribe to the channel, and if you obviously enjoy any of the conversations, such as this one, feel free to share it around and let people know about it. So yeah, we do very much appreciate the support. Now, let's get straight into it. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please welcome Mr. John McEntee to Iblis Manifestations. Alright then, Mr. John McEntee, welcome to Iblis Manifestations, man. It's a real pleasure to have you on the podcast. Finally, it's great.
Yes. Yeah, it's great to be here. Yeah, I know we talked about it at the Damnation Fest, and it finally got around to doing it, so it's cool.
Yeah, man. Honestly, that was such a powerful fucking show you guys put on at Damnation, man. I've been a listener of Incantation for quite some time, but it's great. It's crazy to me how, after so many years, you still find room for, I don't want to call it improvement, but somehow just refining the band and the energy and the sound. It just feels so fresh when you see a band like Incantation that's been going on as long as yourselves, and it's interesting how there's still such a fresh feeling to the performances. I don't get the impression watching you guys that you're tired of what you're doing whatsoever.
No, we're having a blast. That's part of the thing that I think that makes it so entertaining, is that we're just having such a good time doing it. We're all just, releasing everything inside of us to kind of make it happen and stuff. And it's it's a very sincere thing. It's not we're doing it because we love playing the music. We love playing out live. It's still interesting. It's still fun to us. speaking for myself, it's like it's always been super important to me, music and the expression of music and writing music and performing music. And it's just a fire inside me that just never really dimmed, regardless of, you know, current trends or whatever. I mean, there were times when things were really like not trend. We'll say the trend was not on our side for a lot of our career, or at least a big chunk of it. And still every day playing, you know, speaking for myself, I've always just, like told myself that I'm just going to give everything I possibly can, you know, this music means enough to me where regardless of what the trend is or whatnot, it deserves 100% full force, and passion in the music. I mean, because it is really, um, people do music for different reasons. And when I first started the band with Paul Ledney, way back in '89, um, I had to make an oath to myself on why I wanted to play music. Did I want to play music for popularity and money, or do I want to do it for the passion of playing music? And I decided to go with the passion because it just, I could live with myself if I try my darndest, to do it and really kick ass and fail. I'm okay with that because I know that I gave everything that I could. And to just, do it because I want to make a career out of it and just make money and follow the trends or whatever, just to be accepted. It just, to me, doesn't have it takes all the enjoyment out of music and turns it into a job. And for me, it's it's not a job, even though there's aspects of it you have to deal with, the business side of it.
Of
At
course.
the end of the day, the music and being able to play the music and creating music and playing it live is like, you know, that's the main priority. The other stuff, you do it because you have to do it to continue doing it. And we're just fortunate as a band that, people like our stuff, and enjoy our stuff because to be, you know, honest about it, it's very selfish music that we play. It's not something that we write in the concerns of, well, are people going to like this or not going to like this? Because it's more, we just want to create our thing, and then if people like it, they'll come to us. Or when we play a show, we'll just play the songs, play with as much heart and passion that we can, and then if people like it, great, and if people don't like it, that's totally cool too, because we're playing death metal and we're playing, especially our style of death metal, it's not made for mass consumption. So when there's a lot of people that just say this sucks and it's crap or whatever, it's like, yeah, maybe. I mean, if you think so, it is, I guess, and it's fine because we're not doing it to please everybody. If we were doing it to please everybody, we would play a lot different, our style. We would
Mm.
concentrate more on, I don't know, being hooky or just adding whatever the cool trendy thing is at the moment. And it's like, we have just too much integrity for that. It's not, it just, I don't know. Once music turns too much into a business, it's just not fun anymore. And you know, if I'm gonna be out on tour, playing with the guys and stuff, it's like I want to enjoy it, and that's what it is. We enjoy it now. I think it comes across when we play live that you're getting, um, four people that really enjoy it and having a good time, but also are very passionate about making sure that everything comes across at full force. And it's almost like that power that you have of playing live, makes it even more enjoyable, because when you're just fucking slaughtering people alive. It's such a great, powerful feeling. It's like
Absolutely.
you before playing, you kind of just be hanging out, like, whatever, just chatting or whatever, talking. Once you get on that stage and you feel the power of metal, it's like all of a sudden the adrenaline comes in. You feel the, it's almost like being a, uh, you know I don't know what to say. It's like almost like owning the room or something like that. You go there and it's like, there's a reason why you guys came to the show, and you came to the show for us to kick your ass. You didn't come to a show to be, bored by us, or, watch people that are just, just more worried about, not making a fuck up and just trying to, like watching some bands when you see them play and they're just kind of sitting there, just playing their parts and blah, blah, blah. I mean, that's okay. That's one thing. That to me is a different experience than you get with us. I feel like us is more together with the audience, and more a more going forward, wild, not necessarily 100% expected. We're not playing to click tracks or anything, so everything is going with the vibe in the room and stuff like that. And because we've toured, we've seen a lot of bands that they'll play their whole set to click tracks, or they'll just sit there and just worry about playing the super technical stuff, and they're just kind of standing there just doing it, and okay, it's good, but to me that's like sometimes watching a play or something like that. You're just watching an experience. And for us, we want to be interactive with the crowd. We want the crowd to know that they're an important part of this whole thing too. It's like, we don't take for granted the people that come to the show. They're all, part of the whole experience. And when we're playing, we're vibing off the crowd. So it's like, if the crowd is pumped up and, ready for the metal assault, it's like it just fires us up more. And sometimes if the crowd is like, maybe too pretentious or whatever, it's a fuel in its own way too, because then you are like get to that mode where you're just like, okay, we're just going to totally just crush these people, and if nothing else, make them feel like a jerk for trying to hold in all the rage that they really want to be releasing right now.
Absolutely, man. I mean, I think the smile on my face should probably just say already what I'm thinking about your words there. I mean, listen, man, I think that in itself is very much a testament to, I think, one of the most important things about your band, and it's the consistency in which you have been doing what you've been doing. I think it's a perfect reason as to why, after 34 years this year, you've now, your last record with the Sect of Vile Divinities, you put that next to the first record, and there's like a clear progression there, where a lot of bands would have slowed down, or where a lot of bands would have gone, okay, I'm kind of sick of this, and we had a good run. It's very prevalent, I think, that you guys enjoy doing what you're doing, and you're right as well about what you're saying about the live experience, because you want to connect with the audience. You want to have that sort of organic relationship, because there's almost that energy, that feel, the temperature that's in the air that you can't quite put your finger on exactly what that is, but you feel it. And you want people to be up close and personal and feel that energy coming back at you, because otherwise you can just rehearse and just record yourself rehearsing, and then just like release videos online. You know what I mean? But it's like, it kind of defeats the purpose that way.
For me, the live experience is meant to be a live experience, like a real, like I like it when I watch bands that I'm feeling a vibe from them live. Something is coming out that is special and unique to them, and just give you that feeling of you just want to like bang your head, or you want to just like do something, just like, it's like, and I remember that, because I still get that from watching bands play. And, it's been like that my whole life as far as watching bands. Like I want to get into it, like I don't want to just sit there and just, take notes or whatever, be like, oh yeah, this was very good. This, he played that part good. No, I don't give a fuck about that. I want to see a band just go for it. It's like, I don't know. Sometimes I think with technology, growing so much from when we started, I think people depend on it too much, and on recording and on live. And I just think that it takes away a little bit from that feeling. I mean, all the classic heavy metal bands and the bands from the 70s and stuff that I grew up with as a kid liking, they weren't playing the click tracks. At least most of them weren't, and it was great because you just seen them play, and it was like it's not all about like who gives a fuck if what the tempo is, what
Yeah.
BPM you're playing, and that doesn't matter. It matters, does it sound good when you hear it live, or when you
Mm.
hear the song. That's why even on the Sect of All Divinities album, and we're doing that on most of our albums. We fucked around with click tracks here and there, and we realized we just didn't like it. But especially on Sect of All Divinities, we just recorded the songs like we did back in the early days, and it's like if the tempos were not perfect, even when going into the same riff again, and the tempo's off a little bit, it's like it's off because it sounds good being off, because it
Mm.
sounds right going in from the riff before it. Like a lot of times, people these days will just cut and paste the same riff here and there, but the context doesn't make sense because if they're going into it from a different area, or this part of the song has a little more of a different feeling, it's like why does the tempo have to be the exact same? The riff could be the same, but maybe we want to play it a little bit faster here, but not thinking about it, just doing it because when you get to that part, it just feels, the intensity just makes sense, or the drag on the riff or whatever makes sense. It's like we never thought about that when we were doing. I didn't think about tempos. Fuck, probably until Infernal Storm or something. I didn't. It wasn't even a thought in
Right.
my mind. It was just play this riff, play that riff, and the drums play here or there, and we do this riff. And we just throw it together, and if it sounds good, we use it. And I just think it's a travesty in music in general, especially for metal. I think metal and rock, it's more of a deficit than it is, helpful. Uh, I'll go as far as saying a lot of times it's a crutch to bands and stuff like that, and I don't think it's a good. I don't think it's a good thing. Like I said, I will just for instance, a band I used to play in, Mortician, back in the early days. They
Of
when
course.
they play their shows with a drum machine, it's okay. It's not bad. It's still brutal and good. When they play with Sam, they're fucking monster. It just sounds
Sure.
better because you're hearing that feeling to it. It's no disrespect to Mortician. I love Mortician, and I understand. They have their reasons
Great
for
band.
using the drum machine and stuff like that. But for my personal preference, I think it's better when Sam plays with them. It just for me, it just works. If it's gonna be a drum machine thing, it's more like the one guitar player and a drum machine. Okay, I guess that makes sense if you're doing your single guitar play, one person band thing. But when it comes to like really killer stuff, like I don't know, another band like Immolation, like I wouldn't want to hear Immolation just be a drum machine. I want to hear
Mm.
Steve playing those drums. He's a great drummer, and you want to hear
Yeah.
the feeling that he throws into it, not just not just worried about, oh, is he precise there? Maybe drummers care about that stuff, but for me, it's like I just, the fucking songs sound good. That's what's important.
100%, man. I think one of the things with that is that, when you're performing in a band, and especially when you've got a band like Incantation, well, there's not many like the Incantation, but when it's in the case of a band like yourself, and especially when you've got, obviously, I know that yourself and Kyle have played together for many years, and I think that there's this thing that it's almost like, yes, you're playing your parts in a song. Yes, this song already exists on an album somewhere, but it's just getting to almost know the body language of that other person, and it's how you use the instruments as a way of communicating with one another. And I think that when you have that sort of jamming thing where the whole band just comes together and there's that magic that creates that essence, that I think that in a sense, once you have that going, so it's like a dance that's just right on the spot, and then that creates the real metal feeling, at least for me personally.
Yeah.
um because we don't use click tracks in my band either, and you've just completely validated the last 12 years for us, you know. But the thing is as well that I think when you're capable of creating that movement, and when it's not manufactured, like, oh, here's the backing tracks, here's the tempo and whatnot, and like you said, there can be some good use to that as well, but you want the band to create that energy out of just raw thin air. When you do that, I believe that the audience almost by extension, they somehow become an extension of the waves of music that you're creating. So obviously, first and foremost, it goes through the band, but then it goes through the audience, and everyone moves together, and you manipulate the movement which is occurring in the room or in the arena or wherever. You're creating that on the spot rather than, okay, yeah, this is it's meant to be, 210 BPM here, and this is where the backing track comes in. You're creating it on the spot, which I think is actually something you don't really get a lot from, I would say, majority of metal, certainly not from modern aspects of metal, but death metal in particular, I find is something that I would say probably from 2000s onwards, it became quite sterilized in a sense. So I think it's fantastic that a band like Incantation is still maintaining that. And I can attest as well, just from having been to your shows, that energy is real. You feel it when you're in the room, like you move with the band, and it's a fucking great thing, You feel the music rather than just hear it, if that's a
well,
good way of
you're
putting
playing.
it.
I mean, you play to the room. We play to each other first. We vibe with each other when we play. It's like the important thing is that whatever people you're playing with, you have to be vibing with them first and feel to be able to adapt as a team. And we've been through lots of different lineups with lots of different people, and each lineup, there's different things that we vibe on in different ways because people aren't a carbon copy of the last person. The song might be the same, but the way people play it there's just different nuances to it that people bring, some better than others or whatever, but that's just the reality of it. But the fact is that you have to work with the people that you have. You have to feel, see where they're what they're bringing to the table that is making the song come alive, we'll say, because it's like somebody can come into the band and just play the stuff and know the stuff, but if they're not able to vibe with it, it doesn't matter, because then all of a sudden you're not hearing the honesty of the player. You got everybody has to be, we'll say, within the context of the song, be willing to work together as a team and just vibe like a band. I don't know, like use like bands like Black Sabbath, Deep Purple. I mean, they vibed. The beauty of them playing, besides just the heaviness of the time, it's the fact that they're jam bands. Kind of, they're jam bands that are playing actual songs, they're vibing with each other, and that's our inspiration as a band, is bands like that really just connect. Like when we play live, I don't have to worry about what other people are doing. All I have to do is just play the song, feel the song, and then, like you said, you're playing to yourself, and then we say the room feels it too, and the room brings it back to you, and you kind of just, it's almost like it's might sound retarded, but it's almost like a spiritual thing musically, because everybody is part of the whole thing. It's not just us playing for people, and there's a place for bands that do that, that just play, just you just want to see them just perform. I get it, but for us, like I grew up in the 80s metal scene, going to, places like L'Amour's for shows and CBGBs and stuff. And those were wild times and crazy times. And bands were just going for it, hitting hard and stuff. And everybody felt at the show like you're part of the show, the head banging and whatever, the mosh pit or whatever, and all, just the whole vibe. It's like one big thing. I mean, was like one of the great things about, say, seeing Slayer play early on. It was like there was a vibe to it. When they played, you just everybody felt the synergy in the music that made you want to be a part of it. And that's what's, like I say, great about it. I think at a certain point in music, people, well, let's say for musicians, it's a plague that we all get super concerned about being overly tight and have everything be perfect because we want the best representation of us. And obviously, there's nothing wrong with playing this stuff right and good and well, but to sterilize the music because you're so worried about aspects of the music that aren't important. I mean, some of the greatest like rock and metal songs in history don't have every note in the song perfect. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I go back to the 70s because the recording process was a lot more primitive back then, and I mean, you listen to, I don't know, Led Zeppelin or something, and you hear like the guitar is not like super perfectly clean and everything. I mean, there's kind of flubby-ish notes here and there and stuff, but it's still, you're feeling the feeling of the band and the music that's making it great. It's not just the fact that one person played every single note 100% perfect. I mean, even the great, some of the greatest guitar players, it's, I mean, I'll be at awe if they're like super ridiculously clean and perfect, but the songs that I like are not the songs where it has, say, the most amount of clean, fast notes in it. It's the ones that have the most notes that mean something. Because, music is not about, to me, the talent show of it. It's the feeling. It doesn't matter what riffs or what notes or how it. The bottom line is when you listen to the riff that you're writing or you're playing, does it mean something? Does it mean something to you? Does it mean something to the song? Does it make the song go somewhere? We write a song. We write a song. It's okay. Where does this song have to go to? What's the feeling that needs to be in there? And you just work around it. And you make it happen. You don't, it's not all, I don't know. Sometimes I think people look at it almost, it's weird because I totally overanalyze everything as a musician, but at the same time, I also know where to, let it be real and not, like, I'm not over obsessed, I'll say, with, perfection as far as, playing wise. I want perfection as far as a great performance. I want the performance to be a great thing. And if you see us play live a couple nights in a row, there's a chance that you might hear certain songs played a little bit different tempo here and there or something like that, and it's because the room is different and the vibe is different in the room. And it's a great feeling though when you're playing with musicians that understand that and are able to just lock into wherever the vibe goes. Is just an amazing feeling, because it's weird sometimes when you overthink the whole thing and you make the show like a really strict production. Sometimes it takes away from it because you're not just vibing on what's happening. You're just saying, okay, we're doing this performance. This is the part. This happens. This part. This happens. And it's like the way we do it. We just go out there. We just play the set and just roll with it, and you just roll with the punches as it goes, and you make sense out of it as it's happening. And to me, that just works. It's I think a lot of bands, they do this for so long that they just turn into just playing robots, and they just every night you just go on, and it's almost like you put some money in him, and he just goes and just does his thing or whatever, like a toy or something. I mean, they'll play good and they'll play tight, or usually, because they're doing it so much. but sometimes it's void of the proper feeling and the the connection or whatever. But for music nerds, it's good. People like to see, oh, he played that part perfectly like it was on the album, and they like that. But for me, it's just like I said, I like to hear the room. I mean, some of the stuff that Luke does on guitar, every night it's a little bit different what he's doing, but it's just great because when he's doing something, it's like, fuck, I feel the same way. Like that note that he'll hang out, or he'll like extra, he'll do like some parts where he'll just do like some bends and it'll just extend longer than it's supposed to. But it's just like, it's a great feeling to play by his side because he's like, I'm feeling that too. Like we're vibing on the crowd the same way. And that's so great to be able to feel that and know that everyone's expressing themselves, together as a unit. And it's because there has been times in the past where you get a player in the band that is a little more selfish, and when they're too selfish of a player, sometimes it ruins the chemistry live as far as really vibing off the room and working for the team, because the way the band works best is when you're all playing for the to do the best performance possible, not just worried about did I do this weird picking part perfectly, and just all these little things, or am I impressing everybody with playing like super fast or something like that, or whatever stupid stuff. Like that's all like ego bullshit, It's like, no, we're all here to have a good time and fucking, enjoy the fucking music and get a good, release from the music, feel the power of it. It's not about, ego and all that bullshit, I mean, it's just not I don't know, it gets you nowhere, I mean, I like anybody else's early point in my career, I had more of an ego just because I wasn't able to control the situation more. But with age, I just really realized that it's no good, and ends up you make bad decisions out of ego and stuff. And it's a point that I wish that I could explain to some, say, newer bands that are out there that are doing really good these days, because we've been in their position before to some extent, and I know it's really easy to get egotistical and really lose yourself in the fact of all the you're finally doing good as a band, people are really digging your stuff, you're getting great opportunities and everything, and sometimes you start to keep expecting the situation to stay the same, and it doesn't stay the same because music always goes through changes and stuff like that. And it's better to keep your feet on the ground and not not do stupid things that might burn bridges for you, on the way down or whatever, or when things kind of level out, because usually bands will do something, they'll peak, and then they'll kind of go down after a while, and then it matters if they can maintain it or not. Not all bands can, but sometimes bands, it gets really fucked because the time that they're going up, they're kind of act like dicks or whatever, or just don't appreciate the stuff as much as they should, and you don't always realize it when it happens, because I didn't realize it until it was like, things were totally fucked, because you're young, you're just excited because you work so hard for something, but you don't realize that it's important to appreciate every single opportunity every day. And going back to the modern days, if you notice, when I play live, every time now I really try to take time while playing to just look out at the people. And I want to remember these people. I want to remember the people at the show. I want to remember this experience. I want to be able to, think about it later and remember, oh, the show. Yeah, I remember looking out, and it just, you want to have that connection. You want to have that memory of the moment, because, these are great for me and the rest of the guys, these are great moments. I mean, it's just crazy because, you know, we feel like, yes, you know, we're ready for this assault. We're ready. Just give us the opportunity and we'll just, you know, totally kill whatever. You know, we don't care what kind of crowd, where we're playing or for whatever. It's like we're ready to, you know, give everything. And it's such a great feeling, you know?
I think, I mean, absolutely. I think that the main thing that a lot of this comes down to is this is something that, I mean, I feel like there should be some kind of a textbook definition for it, but I think this is something that you should only do because you're passionate about it and pretty much almost no other reasons. And,
Yeah.
you know, the way that I personally relate to this as well, just to give you a sense of like I can completely see where it is that you're coming from with that. But for me personally, just as a bit of a background, I'll admit I did not grow up in a tape trading kind of a scene, because where I
Hmm.
was there was no scene at all. I grew up in the Islamic Republic of Iran, you know, where metal is illegal, and you know anything that goes against the
Yeah.
religion, you can get absolutely fucked for that. You know, even in some extent, even to the point of getting execution, and obviously all that stuff. However,
It's
the
fucked.
thing, yeah, it is. However, obviously you and I already spoke about this in person before, but the thing of it
Yeah.
is, John, that to me, we did what we did over there, the very select number of us. You know, it was like just being a metalhead was as it it was at a detriment to our actual livelihood. Yet we still chose to do it. Why? Because we're passionate. And that's the
Hmm.
thing that obviously I've been lucky enough to have been in the UK for many years, you know, not just to witness other bands such as yourself that I always wanted to see, but to also be able to perform this music. And the thing that is important to me is to always remind myself, hey, motherfucker, remember why you're doing this. Remember where this even came from, you know, and never let go of that feeling, you know, and that's exactly what I find so encouraging is when I see a band like yourself that have been around for so many fucking years, you know, from like the earliest, essentially like the sort of the birth period of death metal. You know, you've still been around from then, and yet you still have that same mindset. So to me, it's that there might be that the different backgrounds, yet I think that mutual kind of respect towards metal and what this genre and this culture beholds, I think is a fantastic thing, you know, and that's the part that I can recognize personally.
Well, I mean, what you're saying about, you know, growing up in Iran is definitely, you know, more extreme than it was for, excuse me, me and other people like myself. But it's people don't know now or remember now or don't realize that the time that we were growing up in the States, metal was an outcast thing for sure, and especially like, well, really this both 70s and 80s, we'll say, you know, and it was something that, like you said, we chose to be. We chose because we had passion for the music, but we chose to be outcasts because we wanted to represent the music that we liked and we were proud of it. And it was something that was real important for us to express in ourselves because we'll say, I mean, I can only speak for myself. I was not I was an awkward kid. I was very uncomfortable in the norms of you know, say my school and stuff at the time, and bunch of stuff. And I always felt like an outcast. And I found that for me, metal and like at that time, a lot of hardcore punk and stuff like that was all stuff that I related to. Like I related to that rage, that pushing things heavier. Like ever since I was a young kid, even in the 70s, if I heard a song that had a distorted guitar on it, a rock song on the radio, I would just be like, "Oh, that's cool," you know. Like it just something about that strength of the music almost gave me, my own little. It gave me my own little world where I could live in. That is aside from these normal people doing normal things, like there's was the jocks and the academic kids and all these different ones, and I was just like, you know until I really embraced metal, it's like I didn't really have a place where I fit in. But even then, it was like my school, what I had like 3 friends that liked metal too, so our group was like super small, and I used to get even just picked on school because I come in, I don't know. I remember seeing Anthrax one weekend at Lemore's and coming with the new Anthrax shirt on school, and like some of the jocks would give me shit. Like every Monday, you come in with a new fucking shirt, you whatever, what's this fucking devil worshiping crap, whatever they do, So
I know.
when people don't understand as much now because metal is so mainstream compared to what it was. I mean, it was big in the 80s, don't get me wrong, but the acceptance of it was not there. Like now people just look at, okay, it's crazy music, whatever, it's heavy. And most people even, most people are like Metallica fans now or something like that, back in the 80s, until Justice for All, it was mostly like, just a fucking metalheads and freaks or whatever that were into Metallica. It wasn't until Justice for All when like all of a sudden the jocks started getting into it or something like that, which I thought was kind of weird. But
right,
it was I grew up as an outcast. It did. I mean, it's debatable if it was self-imposed or not. I mean, is it self-imposed if you just feel right in the situation? I don't know. I guess it is because it's not, people get discriminated against things that they can't control. So I guess it's not the same, but there's still a similarity where you, grow up with most people looking down at you, saying that you're just a waste of life. You're just not, you know, why are you worrying about this music, do this music stuff, because, people look at it like, well, it's like 1 in a million chance that you're going to become a rock star, and it's like, they don't realize that it's like, it's not about being a fucking rock star. It's about expressing yourself with music. Some people, some people paint because they like to fucking paint and they don't do it. It's not doing it because of money, I mean, yeah, if you could sell your paintings and you get good enough, that's great, but it's not, you don't start doing it because of that. I didn't start playing music to become a rock star. I related to the music and I wanted to learn how to play it, So now when I'm doing it, and we started Incantation, like I think I mentioned before, I mean, made the decision, do we want to do this for money or do we want to do it for passion? We decided to do it for passion. Another thing I wanted to bring up too, relating to the passion of playing live, even early days when I mean, any of the bands I played in, but definitely in Revenant, the band I played with before Incantation, which was kind of like mid to late 80s. I remember really late 80s, I guess, closer to. It was like,
that was
I mean,
with
we were
Paul,
playing,
right?
No, well, Paul was at the tail end, but he wasn't never really an official Revenant member. He was
Okay.
the guy I was trying out for Revenant because we lost our drummer and I liked his playing and I just decided to start Incantation with him because the other guys in Revenant had a different opinion on who to take with a drummer. But
sure, I understand. Yeah, you were saying.
Yeah, but my point was that we would play shows. Some shows you play that they literally be like our 4 friends there, and then other we hooked up a lot with the we kind of got along with the hardcore and punk community more than we did the metal community back then, because most of the metal stuff that was coming out at that time in our area was either the extreme poser stuff, or you had the kind of Testament and Metallica sounding stuff or whatever. And we didn't hate the Thrashers, but the Thrashers didn't necessarily understand what we were doing, because we were doing something that was a little more forward thinking, maybe, and a little more not like just what's cool. We were kind of like almost the best word to use, like a smorgasbord of everything we liked. We were just kind of playing it together. So there wasn't 100% direction at that time. But I remember playing those shows. We would like a funny example is we played Studio One, which was a venue by us, and we played opening up. I can't remember the full bill, but one of the bands was like American Angel, which is like a kind of a Def Leppard sounding band in our local scene at that time. And
Okay.
we would just go out there, and we knew we were in total hostile territory, because, I mean, we're talking about, Def Leppard, and we were playing like something closer to, I don't know, Wehrmacht or Cryptic Slaughter or something, So we
Right.
knew
Okay.
we were really pushing, limits. We go out there though, and we had this attitude like, let's just go out there, show everybody what the fucking deal is, Hopefully they'll watch our set and learn something about fucking metal. Maybe in a year or two they'll be, a fan of ours or something like that. And we would play these shows, and we would literally get like claps from like, 4 or 5 people, but there'd always be somebody after we played, some like kind of poserish dude or something like that, or some dude that wasn't into it all, because like, that was really fucking cool, and you just, we were just planting the little seed there, to it was almost like back then, we were trying to convert people into more extreme music, one person at a time in our area. And I don't think Revenant always gets, because I mean, they broke up a while ago, but they don't always get the credit that they deserve, for what the can of worms they opened up in New Jersey, New York scene. I mean, there was, Revenant, Ripping Corpse. A little bit later was Immolation. All these bands really, were a part of getting things to, like exposing people to something that never heard it before, and then a few years later, they're like, "Holy fuck, I love," Eric stuff's coming out, and they're all getting into it or whatever. But like, usually their first chance of hearing it was a band like us or Ripping Corpse, New Jersey, and it was really a cool thing to do. But that mindset always sticks with me. Like, every show you play your heart out. Every show, it doesn't matter if there's a packed house or nobody there. You play your best, because every single person is important. From, you grow your following from putting on a great performance for, a small crowd as you do a big crowd, because you want people to leave the show feeling that they got something that was of value, and that hopefully they'll tell their friends about, or become on board as far as being a supporter of the band or something.
100%. I think you could look at it like, you could have the cynical view of, oh, there's always shows happening all the time, and it's just another gig. But I'm 100% with you, man. Fully. I think like every show, you're essentially making history. That's a day of your life. That's one moment that you get to do what it is that you have set out to do. So whether, like you said, there's
Yes,
only like
you get
10
it.
people there, or like, yeah, or like a massive arena, then that's what it is. You still play your heart out.
Well, we
Um,
tour with bands sometimes, and
yeah.
the show will be lame, and the other bands will be like, I don't want to do this, or like bitching about it because the show isn't packed or whatever, And I'm just sitting there like, oh, okay. These people are just kind of way too easy, It's like,
Yeah.
no, you got every show has to be has to be played the same way as if you're playing, a huge festival, Hellfest. You play the same for Hellfest as you do for this little shitty bar down the street that, booked you and has like 20 people there. Because it's like, yeah, Hellfest you might play for, who knows how many thousands of people. But when you're playing the bar, you're playing to 20 people that sometimes travel 200 miles or something to go see you, or your diehard fans. And it's like, just because there's not a lot of them doesn't mean their heart is any less strong for what you do. It's an important thing to not be jaded like that. I mean, I know it hurts the ego when not playing in front of the biggest crowd ever, but to know that there's people there that still appreciate you, it's a great feeling to play for. I mean, I love playing sometimes the small shows, and these people, you could just hang right out with them, right after the show, just fucking get off stage and just hang out with almost everybody at the show. That's awesome,
And yeah, that's exactly the thing, and it really accentuates that whole sense of the community aspect of it, but also connecting with people. And you're talking about, obviously, like getting your ego hurt if there's not enough people showing up. I mean, a part of that, like, there's so many different things that can be related to that. You can think of it. What I try and do personally, and I don't know perhaps if you can relate to this or not, but the way I look at it is, when it comes to numbers and things like that side of things, it's easier to look at it like a business, because then you can be more analytical about it. Okay, well, why did they not hear about this? How good of a job did the promoter do? And things like that. That you can kind of look at it from that angle and just not have any emotional attachment to whatever the results are. But I think the expectation of, everywhere I go, everyone's just gonna fucking love everything that we do. That's, I think, where your ego gets hurt. And I really enjoyed what you said earlier, where you were saying that if you play to a crowd and if they're not budging, then you're gonna kick their ass even harder. And I think that's great, because then it's like, that movement eventually breaks through, and everyone walks away happy, I guess.
I mean, I'll sometimes just, if I see somebody being, super like
arms crossed,
stubborn and lame or something like that, I'll play and I'll just look right at them and just, when I'm yelling to the crowd, I'll look right at them and say, "Come on, motherfuckers, let's see your fucking horns," and he won't do it. And I'll be like, "Come on, motherfuckers," and look right at the dude at any eye, and eventually they'll be like something, just.
Or like they'll crack a smile. They're trying to be too serious, and then you'll see their face kind of break on the inside. I know exactly what you're talking about.
It's like they'll, it's just a funny thing, because it's like they want to, but they're just too uptight to do it, and they'll just, but I look at it like, if you're going to be there, fucking be there. It's time to let loose. It's not time to, be super conservative on what, going to the show and stuff like that. It's like sometimes, you play a show and it seems like everyone's just standing there like taking notes the whole time or something like that. And you're just like, come on, dude, like enjoy the show. I mean, I don't care if, people can enjoy it however they want, but I just want to make sure that people know that, we're going to bring the vibe with us, and, if you want to, let go and enjoy it with us, but at the same time too, it's like, I understand people enjoy the music in different ways, and that's cool too. It just, I just want people to know that if they want to let loose, that we're totally, there with them, because we're in a situation where we're just like draining everything into the music. It's just like at that moment of playing live, everything is in that moment, it's like that feeling, that riff that's happening, or that vocal part is the part, like that's the vibe. I don't know how to explain it, but it's just it's a thing where you feel it as a musician, where you're just like, oh, this is it, It's like, fuck you, motherfucker, you get that real, I don't know, just it's adrenaline. That's what it is. It's like, and it's great. It's an important thing to have that adrenaline when playing live. You just want to just, it just brings this energy that you didn't even know you had to you or something. And it's been like that since the beginning for me, ever since I I got comfortable on stage. It took me a couple shows. After that, it was just like, every show is all out of salt. I mean, it's really funny because you watch some of the early videos of me playing, and it was just like I was just totally just zoning in my own world. I almost go as crazy as I did 30 years ago live still, though, which is a great thing because I just feel the music, and it never. If I ever play these songs and don't feel it, it's like I know it's over or it's done, but I still feel it same as I did back then when we play. I mean, still as excited to put out new material as I was before. It's like, I mean, we just recorded a new album, and
Fantastic.
we've worked really hard on it, and it's, we're excited for it, but also at the same time I'm nervous as fuck because as a musician, you get so caught up in it that you get concerned. Like, you were confident and great with it and happy with it, then after it all gets done, you're like, was that good or is that bad? I don't even know, because everything was written, with a vibe, with a feeling, and trying to express ourselves. And you're just like, fuck, I hope when it comes out, it's still going to make that impact that it did when we were writing this stuff, and mean the same thing, or means something to somebody, But I mean, with the Sect of All Divinities album, it totally blew our minds that people liked it so much, because we were so bummed out with that album. Like, when we finished it, we're just like, I don't even know if it's good or bad anymore. It got so, we worked so hard on it. It was so taxing to record and, get finished, that by the time we finished it, it's like, I kind of like lost perspective a little bit on, and like the original feeling that I had of the songs. It gets twisted when you record them, you dissect them, you play into it, trying to get everything right. You do so much work on the song that by the time they're done, you're just like, I don't know anymore. I mean, this is just what we do, And we kind of left it up to actually Dan Swano to do a lot of the decisions mixing wise, because I couldn't even really focus on it anymore, because I focused so hard on the album until we sent it to Dan that I was just like, now I'm fucked. Like, I don't even know what's going on anymore. And for, we had a good 8 months since the album was done until it got released. And I was just like, part of me was like nervous. Part of me was just, all I wanted to do was write new material that expressed me at this moment now. And, that became the stuff that's on this next album. But, it was crazy because once the album got released, or the first couple songs got released, the reaction was really good. And it was just like, oh, fuck. Okay, that's cool, because I had no idea if it was going to go over well. I mean, it's not like my whole life depends on if this album does good or bad, because I mean, I have enough stuff that I've done, but still, though, everything means a lot to us, and we just, it was just nice to get that validation that was still worth something. But the thing that was really mind-blowing was, like, people really, really liked it a lot. Like, it wasn't just it went over good, it went over great. It ended up becoming like one of our top selling albums in our catalog, and charting the best ever that we've had of any album. And it was just like, wow, it's fucking weird, because it's like, I'll go back, we'll talk, Kyle and I will talk, and we'll be like, man, we thought we were going to totally flop, we were like, this is just, no one's going to like it. We're going to be done. And then it went over really well. So, from those experiences, I basically learned, like, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. Don't listen to me when it comes to if the album's good or bad. Just listen to it and decide for yourself, because, I mean, not that I like the songs in the album, and the album grew on me, but it took me a little while of staying away from it after the recording because just being immersed in it so much really fucked up my perception of it. And it wasn't until the album started getting released to everybody else that I really spent a lot of more time listening to it, preparing songs for the tour and stuff like that, that I realized, okay, this is actually good. It was just, I just had total burnout from the studio, which is a problem that's plagued, I think, myself and probably a lot of musicians, is that you just get so burned out being in the studio that you lose perception on where you're at. And that's why it's really good for us to have someone like Dan Swano that's able to, look at it from a fresh view and kind of throw in his 2 cents, because to expect us to be able to mix it properly ourselves after we're already burnt out from the recording session and second guessing ourselves like a motherfucker everywhere. It's like, I don't know how, like, there's some people that they could just do it. They write a fucking album and they can mix the album and the album sounds fucking killer and everything works out great. For me, it's like, no, when I'm done with it, it's like when I'm done tracking, it's like, I don't want to fucking listen to the song for at least another 5 months or something like that. Like it just, because I start to lose, for me, the excitement of it. But it's a problem that we've had throughout the years with our some of our album productions, is just that I'm trying to make decisions with the other guys and we're all burnt out in the studio. But if we go back to it, like say we give it the 6 months after we record the stuff, then all we're going to do is just complain that we don't like some of the stuff we did on the album and that we want to redo it. So it's like, no, you just have to do it and just fucking mix it and say, fuck it, it's out. And whatever it is, because otherwise you go batty critiquing everything, because part of being a musician is like looking back on whatever you do and just finding a way to bitch about it or complain about something. I could have did better here. That part could have been better. But then what do? You go in there, you change it, you make it better, and you fuck it up because the spontaneity of it is fucked up. I mean, there were parts of the Sect of All Divinities album that when we were tracking it, I was just like, man, maybe we should just change this riff totally, and like re-record the song or something like that. And Kyle was telling me, like, dude, it's fucking good. Just fucking leave it, It's like, don't fucking worry about it. But it's so easy to get in your own head about it because, it just, at least for me, it's the way I am about it. It's like, you want to be a perfectionist, but at the same time, you want to have the honesty and the spontaneity of it.
You just so much want to kick everyone's ass. I think that's probably.
Well, yeah, the new album has a little bit more faster stuff on it than the last one, and there's some parts that I'll really be bummed out if you don't kick people's asses on, because it's just playing it. I just feel like, like that.
Yeah.
That aggressiveness to it, and I just hope that it comes across that way to other people. They can enjoy that pissed offness that I feel.
I think the thing is as well, man, first of all, I'll hold my hand up. I think Sect of Wild Divinities, in my opinion, I think that's actually one of your best records, period. It's great to see. It's great to hear that it's been received in such a way as well, man. It's fantastic to see how well received it has been, especially that I think that was a pandemic record as well, right? That came out in 2020.
Yeah, it was really, it blows my mind because so many of our peers release such crap albums after a while, like uninspired, just doing it because it's time to do an album. And it just shows that we're not that kind of band. We're not the band that we're not just doing it. Okay, I play in this band, I do this band, and that's just what I do. And okay, it's time to write the album, blah blah blah, go through the motion. No, it's not that. Everything is, there's a lot of passion and thought put into it, and it's done because we want to do it, not because we have to do it. I mean, we took a little bit of a recording break between Primordial Domination and Vanquish and Vengeance, and the only reason why we took that break is because I wasn't feeling inspired music writing wise to do it, and I was like, I'm not going to force myself to write songs if I'm not feeling it. It's like if I feel it, I'll do it. And it just happened naturally. We were at practice. I think we were practicing. I can't remember exactly. We were practicing for some shows, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a riff came into my head, and it was just like I had to tell her, okay, let's stop for a moment. I got this riff. And we just started working on a new song, but it happened organically. It wasn't thought about. And I mean, the song, I think the first riff I wrote for Vanquished was the song Profound Loathing. It was one of the riffs in there. It just came to me, and that's the way it should be. It shouldn't. You shouldn't feel under the gun because it's time to write a record. You have to write a record because you want to do it when you feel the inspiration, when you feel the fire to do it.
Absolutely, yeah. It's exactly that thing of you want to do it out of passion, not because anyone has asked you to do it. Just like back in high school, you didn't become a metalhead because anyone asked you to do it. You did it because that's
Exactly.
what resonated with you, and that's what you wanted to become. And I think to
Yes,
your
you
point,
get it.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, man. To your point earlier as well about what you were saying about about just like over analyzing stuff, and then looking through the songs too many times, and then let's look at this 6 months from now, and then maybe we'll change it. I think one issue with that is, it's kind of a scary thing, like the relationship between art and time is one that I think is a very fascinating one because, in 6 months, you could actually change as a person, or like your opinion of certain things could change, which in my opinion can then actually bleed into the music. Like you
Yep.
could experience any sort of thing, or even just the way you view your own stuff. So that's why sometimes I think there's a perfect balance between logistically and analytically executing the best of the song, but also sometimes just being spontaneous, having that
Spontaneity.
spontaneous.
Yes,
Yeah, that's the
spontaneous.
one. English is still not my first language, but having that spontaneous element in the material, and that's the whole reason of, like you even mentioned at the beginning of our conversation. The absence of tempo tracks and these kind of things. That's you want to capture that magic, release it, and then that's sort of there as a part of your legacy. Like we were even talking, you mentioned And Justice for All earlier with Metallica. They will never be the same people that they were on that record because they were essentially like James Hetfield. Like he was a fucking maniac when they did that album. Like he was just like
Yeah.
drinking himself to death, and just doing crazy shit. And that's captured on that record. And it's in the lyrics. And it's exactly, the way I look at it is with your songs and albums, obviously, like you say, you don't want to overanalyze, but you can also look at it like everything that you're doing is shaping the legacy of everything that you leave behind. And it's very much like that in terms of the shows that you play as well. Like you said, whether it's like 10 people or 1,000 people, the thing is that you never know when it's going to be your last show. You're never gonna know when it's gonna be the last time that you get to do what you love to do. And obviously, a lot of
Yep.
us got to put that to test with the pandemic because some of us didn't know when the fuck we were gonna be playing again. But I
Yeah.
think that that's exactly why it's important to maintain the integrity first and foremost, but also remember where that passion comes from. Remember why you're even doing what it is that you're doing in the first place. And that in the case of metal, I think it's important to embrace this powerful thing that it gives you. Like you were saying that you didn't fit into any kind of groups, so eventually it was metal that kind of gave you that voice, that gave you that tool of expression. And I think that that tool of expression is a powerful thing. Why? Because it allows people like yourself, and those of us who don't necessarily fit into society or any kind of groups. There is no hierarchy for our type of people to reach other than the world which we create for ourselves through the vessel of the heavy metal culture. that you get to become the ultimate alpha just by being on stage and just by playing your riffs, and just by lifting the roof of an entire place. And I think there's a real beautiful thing to that. And that's something that perhaps it might be in other things, but in my life, that exists in nowhere other than metal.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, playing there's nothing quite like playing live and feeling like you're doing what you're supposed to do the way you're supposed to do it, and just basically just kicking ass. There's a it almost like um you know everything and everybody and every issue that tried say to hold you back and tried to tell you that you couldn't do it, or you're following a system that you're not a part of. We'll say you're not another brick in the wall or something like that. It's like when you're on stage and we're playing songs that we wrote as a band that people are enjoying, we're feeling we're playing killer. There's definitely a validation there for sure, because especially, I mean, it's less now, but more when I was growing up, for sure, that there was expectations of what you're supposed to do with your life. You're just supposed to do this, 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 and this is the way the reality of life goes. And it's like, I just knew early on, like, this whole thing is, it's not for me. It's not meant to be that way. And if I had to live life not playing music and do the normal, the normal person life stuff, that I would just be dying inside as a person, because it's not fulfilling to me. I need to be able to express myself musically and whatnot. It's just a part of who I am. And getting back to the recording stuff, I came to the conclusion at a certain point that it's just like the album just needs to be what it is, and it's a snippet of time. Yeah, you're not getting that time back. You're not well, you could change it if you keep fucking with it, but there's a magic about a time period in your life that you have on this recording, and you want to preserve it. I mean, hopefully people like it and it's good, but at the same time, it's a part of our history. The four of us that play on this album, it's a part of our history and should be celebrated, at least on our end. It doesn't, if people like it or don't like it, that's their prerogative. But I believe that we need to just be proud. This is where we were at this point. This is what we did, and we're lucky to be able to have a documentation of this time. We can never be who we were 30 years ago 100%. Even if we played with the same four guys, it's impossible now because Ronnie passed away, unfortunately. But even if all four of us came together, we still would not be able to be the same people we were back then. It just isn't going to happen, And for people to expect that, I'm supposed to get people in the band, tell them, do you have to be exactly like these other people? It's like, no, that doesn't work, and that's not good, because then when we play live, these people that I'm playing with aren't expressing themselves. Everyone needs to express themselves. Everyone needs to, add the parts that are important to them. And everybody, say most people, for the most part, have something to contribute that's great to, making the band, either album or live performance wise, good. But you have to be honest. You can't pretend. I can't pretend that we're in 1991 anymore. I mean, I love that stuff, and I love playing that stuff. And when we play it, I think we play it good and authentic, but we play it authentic to say the way it was written, but we also play it authentic to us now. So it's not like you're not just, I don't know,
It's not a
regurgitate.
nostalgia act as such. You're actually
Yes,
creating a modern sort of like the. I think, well, you're not changing the songs as such, but you're bringing the vibe of the current incantation to them, in a sense.
we're bringing them to current life of what the band is now, and that's any. I mean, when you, at least when I watch a band play, I'm not one of those people that say get you know bummed out if some of the people that, say from the original lineup aren't there. It's not that I don't like it or anything, but it's like when I see a band play and they really kicking ass and they're doing it, um, you know, with feeling, and they're keeping the integrity of what the band is, but also you're feeling that this is really something. It's really happening. It's really live.
Yeah.
It's not just someone trying to create something that we did or they did, a long time ago. It's like I don't know. I mean, I'm old school, so I relate a lot of stuff to Black Sabbath, and like for me, like I like the fact when Black Sabbath got in Ronnie James Dio on vocals. I mean, for me, I thought it was a great improvement to where they were kind of heading as a band anyway. But that's besides the point.
Yeah.
It's like when he played the old songs, he made them his own. He
Yes.
But they're still the classic songs you like, and when you hear it, it still brings all the beauty of what was originally great about it, but at the same time, you're feeling like, it's not someone there just trying to do a cover of this song or trying to just mimic what was done. You know, he was bringing something to it that, was distinctively him, but still had the basics of what the song is and stuff like that. And I like watching bands that can do that in a good way, because I don't agree with the fact that always the original lineup is great. I mean, put Metallica for instance. I mean, for the most part, it's three of the guys are pretty much original for the most. I mean, of course, Dave Mustaine played with them, but that's for album sakes. It was the same lineup except for bass players, obviously.
Yeah.
And just because they kept the same members, I mean, holy fuck, did they fucking suck after a while, And it's totally changed from what it originally was. It changed more than a band that actually changes more members and keeps a more authentic sound than, so I don't buy that's always a great thing, because I mean Metallica doesn't have it in them to do another Ride the Lightning, Master Puppets, or Kill 'Em All. I don't think it's possible, but keeping all the same guys, didn't make things, we'll say, better at all. I mean, it looks nice to say that it is, but I mean, for at least in my opinion, Metallica hasn't done anything that I really, really liked since Master of Puppets. I mean, Just for All has its moments. Other stuff for me is just, it's not my cup of tea. But I think that argument of Metallica is a great example of it. That it's not artistically, it's not a good thing for me. I mean, not saying that what they're doing is wrong, because they do what they want to do. If they want to change, I mean, there's like a trillion bands. I mean, I don't want to, naming out bands that do it, but I mean, you could almost listen to any band from, say, our era, and they've changed a lot. And a lot of times, it's almost all original members, and they're just change their style a lot. And it's not that it's anything wrong with it, but it's just like, sometimes to maintain the style, you sometimes have to change things, because people do grow and change in different things. And just because I don't change that much musically, that I still enjoy the stuff. Like, I guess I'm fortunate because I made a decision early on that was honest to myself. So it's like easy for me to continue doing the the style, because I made an oath to myself it was going to be me, sincere. We weren't. We were influenced by people, but we weren't necessarily blatantly copying other people's style. It's different when you have a band and you're part of a trend, and you might do some stuff that's good, but when you're doing it, when you do it as part of a trend, it's easier to get changed later on, because you know you're not being you don't have that importance in it. Like for me, I just knew early on, this is it. It's like it's going to be the heaviest, brutalest, blasphemous, sickest fuck you to everybody band out there. And it's like, we're going to die on this on this battlefield or whatever, doing this. And other people are different. Other people are concerned about making this into a job, and they want to maintain a certain amount of cash flow from doing this and all this other stuff. And it's understandable, but it's just different. I didn't get into it for these reasons. And it'd be really and it would be a real conundrum for me if I was told that, like, I just have to write a really lame song and everyone's going to really like it and then we're going to be super huge. That'd be a really difficult thing, because I could write a lame song, no problem, but do I want to do that to everything that I believe? I mean, back then, early on, we started, it was like everything I believed up to that point, everything that was part of my soul was into this band. And now, 30 some odd years later, it's like, well, everything I've done for the last 30 something years have been for passion, and is super important to me. Part of who I am. It's like, am I going to now am I all of a sudden going to be like, okay, now it's time for me to just, do something that is crowd pleasing or whatever, it's like, it's not, I'm not interested in that. I'd rather just, kill people with the stuff that we're doing and being honest, like I said, I know I'm kind of going off on the same circle, but I can't help it.
It's important. No. Listen, man, I think the most important thing is integrity. And that's something that I think people can recognize within your work. And that's the reason why Incantation, not having only gone through many old school fans, but now even the newer kids that are getting into death metal are still resonating with your band. I think that's the reason. It's that honesty and the passion and the integrity that's behind it. And when you say that you want to do something like this full time for passion and not as a job, a lot of people will hear this and be like, oh, okay, that's cool. But I don't think many people actually understand what that actually implies, and the logistics, and how as a musician it's essentially like you're constantly stood on this ground where the rug could get pulled beneath you like any moment, so you have to keep pushing and you have to keep working, but that's I think there's a real beauty to that, because it creates for such a it forces you to just live your life on your own terms, in a sense, or perhaps it's an extension of you making that decision anyway, but it really puts you in a position where you've got no choice but to paint your world in the way that that you choose to. And I think that's a beautiful thing, man, and it's awesome to hear that. And one thing that I wanted to ask you about as well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe I saw recently on the band's Instagram page that you're currently working on a documentary for Incantation. Is that correct?
Yes, it's a documentary on myself/Incantation, but it's not a I don't know what the right term would be, like a full retrospective documentary. It's not going to be like talking about every single like lineup, every, it's gonna talk about the stuff, but it's not going to be like emphasized on every little aspect of the band, like in detail or whatever. That's actually going to be part. I'm sorry, it's going to be part of a book that we're doing, that
Oh,
we're also
cool.
in works on. That's going to be a little more in depth and going to have more input from, you know, all different people who played in the band throughout, our history and stuff. But this one is going to start off kind of giving backstory about how I got into metal and into bands and playing, and then talk about, say some of the time, the 30 years of the band, I guess, but kind of just like I said, not going super detail, and then talk more about, and it's going to be more based around what I'm doing now, and situation the band's in now at the moment, and you know what fuels me to do it, what my goals are and stuff like that. So it's gonna be interesting. The guy that's doing it is smart about it because he's a younger kid that's doing it. So he says he's not the right person to do something older school because he can only do it from his perspective. But I think it's really cool to get that kind of perspective on it. Um, so yeah, I'm really excited about it. Like I said, then we have a book that we've been working on for quite a while, and we're kind of trying to jump back into, working on. We started working on a little bit more in December again, and that's going to be, yeah, something more detailed, a lot more minutia and stuff like that. But I think is, also good. I mean, it's I have a what's like a complex relationship with my past. I love being, what's it called, nostalgic. I love the
Sure.
time I grew up in for music. I love all the stuff that I've done musically with different people. Even if there is drama here and there, I'm appreciative of all the great opportunities of working with people and stuff. But uh, at the same time, I'm I don't thrive on it. I don't sit back and be like, wow, 30 years ago, I really kicked ass and I did this, like some people hang out and drink a beer and think about the good old days. But for me, it's like, I'm really focused on now though, because it's like,
Mm.
I'm living now. I'm still creative. I still want to do this. It's like for me to sit around and just think about the good old days is not in me to do. As far as, I mean, let's say you can get me to talk about my time working in the band, whatever. I'll tell stories out the wazoo. But when it comes to my own personal thinking, the way I'm thinking and what I'm focused on musically, I really don't like going back and, um, you know, I, I don't like, I will say I don't like depending on going back on anything because I'm still a songwriter. I love working with the guys in the band that we have now. They're all, I mean, I'm like really fortunate to have great people to work with in the band, and I'm stuck in now, and it's like I don't know when that, you know, I don't feel anywhere close to that place where I could sit back and just think like, oh, it was great, like, looking back on my career, I feel, um I guess I don't feel like I don't I'm too inspired, I guess,
Mm.
to live only in the early heyday of the band. It just, and I get it that a lot of people do. I mean, a lot of musicians, you know, especially if they're not playing in the band anymore, they look back at that. Those were the good old days, or people from that time looking back as that's the good old days. And I get it. And that's great. And I'm happy that they do that. And I appreciate it too, but I can't sit around and just think about that all the time, because it's like, it's not, it's who I was back then. It's still part of who I am now. But, you know, yeah, right. Writing, that's why, Sect of Divinity did so well, is because I'm not like living in the past. I mean, I'm appreciating the past. It's like there's a difference between it's a difference between appreciating it and living in it. And so many people from my era will say of metal live in the past, and to some extent my world is created my own. I create my own bubble that I live in now, which it revolves. I still have the influences that I have back then. I love when I listen to death metal. 90% of the time it's going to be bands I listen to either in the late 80s or early 90s, if it's death metal or something like that. Not that I don't like new death metal, but it's not my it's not the stuff that got me into it. It's not the stuff that has a personal connection. But at the same time, I don't. I guess when it comes to my own stuff, I'm a lot more like, yeah, whatever. Okay, so we did Onward to Golgotha. That was great. It was a fun time. The guys kicked ass. We did a great album, but whatever. So now it's time to move on. I'm here now, and I want to create the best stuff that I can create now. And I don't want to. I don't want to. I don't let. I guess I don't let this. Yeah, the simple way of putting it is I don't let the past overshadow where I am now. It's like I totally appreciate it 100%. I'm totally honored to be a part of it, but I don't let it rule what I do now. The fact that there's a lot of similarities to it is because it's, first of all, it's the same fucking person writing this stuff. Is also because I love that stuff, and I still am. In certain ways, I'm still that person. In certain ways, I'm not that person anymore. But when it comes to writing music, I'm always going to be that 20-year-old that tells the world to fuck you. It's like, because that was, something that when Paul Letty and myself first got together back in '89, we're just like, we're going to create this band that everyone's going to fucking hate. It's going to be the sickest, blackest thing ever. And basically, we're just going to tell the world to fuck you. This is the way death metal is supposed to be done. And that attitude I still have. I still want it. It's like,
that's right.
It's not that I have anything against other death metal bands, but it's like, this is us. We do us our way. We don't do death metal, quote unquote, your way, the way that it's supposed to be done. It's like, we don't follow those fucking rules. It's like, why should we? We started off before there were rules in death metal. We're not going to all of a sudden be like, oh, well, now there's rules. Now let's do that. No, fuck that. It's like, we do it because we want to do it for the same reasons why we originally wanted to do it, just to push the limits and, be a fucking asshole about it. It's, you don't get anywhere, at least for us, it's like, we don't get anywhere just trying to fit in with the trends. I mean, I can babble on forever. I mean, in the late 90s, there started to become a trend of like click tracks and Pro Tools and all this crap. And it was just like, all of a sudden I heard people start talking about, again, back to the tempo thing, like tempo mapping and BPMs. And I'm just like, huh? What are we even talking about here? I had to like look up what BPMs were and stuff like that. Like, I never even thought about it before, because it wasn't in, wasn't in the toolbox or whatever. And it was just like, no, we don't need this, like some of the musicians of the time, say, when we did Diabolical Conquest, were like, huh, that album isn't the tightest, or whatever. And it's just like, yeah, and so, I mean, really, is anything we've done been that tight? Really? It's not all about just having the tightest album, but does the album move people? Yeah. 25 years later, we're asked by Decibel Magazine to play that album live for them. So, I mean, it obviously means something to somebody because they caught us being honest to ourselves. We weren't trying to be a machine. We weren't trying to do anything. And that's on all the stuff that we do. We have that same passion. It's like, it's a passion to do this. It's not following rules. I mean, I came from a band, Revenant, that we were definitely a smorgasbord of styles and stuff like that. Then I found where my niche was that I felt really comfortable. This is the place where I could express myself. And it's like I made a good decision because that is still where I express myself that same way.
Absolutely, man. I think that consistency which I spoke of earlier. I think that's exactly the thing that I was pointing to, and
one thing. I'm sorry. Before I get into it, I wanted to say another thing. With doing things the way we did things, is by doing it with no expectations, rules, or remorse. We were able to do something that we didn't even know we were doing, and that was creating our own genre of death metal. And how flattering is that? I mean, how mind-blowing is that? Because we didn't try to create another style of death metal. All we wanted to do was do our style of death metal. We didn't know when we started. We didn't even. We were just following our own heart, our own feeling. I found other people that believed in the ideas that I had musically, and I just think it's amazing, to look back on that. Like I don't hang out and like pat myself on the back all the time for doing it, but it's definitely like a flattering thing as a songwriter musician to know that I'm hearing bands now that have a similar sound to us, in a different era or something like that. It's a real it's another, I guess, validating thing to know that the ideas that we had really resonated with other people, and we were doing it because we wanted to purposely tell everybody to fuck off. We wanted to be that band that plays with whatever other band out there, and we're that one that's telling everyone, fuck you, this is the fucking deal. It's like, you could play with that nice death metal stuff or that tight death metal stuff or that popular death metal stuff, or you can see the meat and potatoes, the grunge, the sewer of death metal, the real darkness of death metal. And that's what we wanted to do to people. We wanted to show people that is like, this is who we are. This is our interpretation of death metal. Our interpretation of death metal is not being the fastest band or whatnot. It's about being the most intense feeling, to feel that sludge, to feel that murk. It's all just it came from us. Like my influences were stuff like early death, early necrophagia. Necrovore was a big inspiration on me.
Necrovore, yeah, absolutely huge. But back in 87, I think he's only got the one demo, and it's just fucking crazy to listen to that. It's like, where did this even come from? Yeah, great examples.
Those things, like, we'll say, for me, so Scream Bloody Gore. Before Scream Bloody Gore, there wasn't a death metal album that sounded like that before. That was a game changer when that came out. Then you listen to Necrophasia's Seasons of the Dead. No album sounded like that at the time. And Killjoy was doing something that was like way different. Like, it was hard for people to even fucking comprehend back then. I mean, you listen to the demo stuff too. It was rough edged. It was just really told a story. The music, like, you could tell that they were just fucking going for it. Those things are important. And like, same thing with Necrovore. When I heard Necrovore, I don't think I've heard anything like that before. Like, it blew my fucking mind because I was just like, what is this? Like, it just it didn't exist before I heard it. So and those are impactful things to a young musician, is to get your mind blown by people that they're doing death metal in their own way, that their interpretation of death metal. And it was like, that was where I felt comfortable. I was like, we're going to do our interpretation of death metal. I mean, if I had a goal back then, my goal was to do what Possessed did on Seven Churches with Onward to Golgotha, is like to do something that was going to be so dark, so evil, so forward thinking, that it was going to make a mark, regardless if it was like people were going to like it or not like it. I was like, well, people are going to fucking know we exist, and they're going to listen to this, and they're not going to be able to say this isn't the most dark, heavy, pissed off thing they've ever heard in their life. And that's the same vibe I got when I heard Seven Churches for the first time. I was like, what is going on here? Like, this is just fucking, because I was pretty young when I heard that, and it was like, I didn't hear anything that over the top at that time. So it was like, I want that feeling in the music that we do. I want people to, get that from there. Like, they don't have to like it. It's not wanting to like it. It's about telling them, fuck you, we're here. You could listen to either the nice Mars Sound production bands, or you can listen to us, where we're playing death metal our way. We're not cookie cuttering it in the studio. We're not going in and saying we like Obituary sound and we're going to do that production, or we like Morbid Angel sound, we're going to do their production. No, we want to do our production, just like the bands I mentioned. They did their productions that they wanted to do. We want to do our production the way we wanted to do it. And it's because a lot of bands were listening to these other bands, but I love Morbid Angel, I want that kind of sound on our band. And I get it. But for me, it was like, no, that's Morbid Angel is great, but Morbid Angel is Morbid Angel. Let them be them, and let us be us. There's a we want to, for us, it was like there needs to be a reason to exist, not just exist to be a cover band of I don't know, whatever.
Yeah, not just another filler. Fuck that. You've got your own thing going, and that's exactly. I think he's one of the biggest attractions of the whole thing, in my opinion, is that that you do things your own way. I mean, especially with Incantation, one thing that I've always liked so much is just like it. To me, I kind of look at it as like the if Black Sabbath kind of perhaps a Master of Reality, if you were to just inject that with all kinds of like steroids, but also LSD and maybe a little bit of nitroglycerin and then bit of TNT, and just like sprinkle all that on top of it. Yeah, I think that's kind of like, to me, I see it as that type of evolution, and I think that's fantastic, and then to see how far that's actually come. And I mean, just hearing you speak now, it's like, it's as if it's as if like you came up with the idea of the band yesterday. It's fascinating how alive and well that fire is, and actually is inspiring to listen to. Now I want to go and fucking I was listening to your music before this, but now I want to go back and crank it back on and just listen to it from this perspective. But I also think, to your point as well, just as a general thing, I think that when it comes to this music, that is the only way to do it, is that you do it through, you set your own standards, because this is one very prevalent thing from everything that you said, is that you set your own standards. You don't need anyone to come and tell you, oh, your drum beat should be like this. You should try and use this. You should try and use that amp. You should try and use more of this particular style, or whatever, or you should use this aesthetic. You've always set your own standards, and you've always set your own example in doing things, because why? Well, this is your own path, and whether that was within the context of just society as a whole, or even within the context of death metal itself, you're still doing things your own way. And I think that's a characteristic that I think everyone should take note of and pay attention to, which I think is extremely important.
It's not I don't know. I don't know if it's learnable, that trait,
Sure.
because it's just something that for me is inside me.
Mm.
It's just who I am. I just yeah, it's just who I am. It's hard to I don't know. It's a weird thing to reflect on and think about it. It's easier for me to express it because I'm just expressing honestly how I feel. But for me to think about it, it's like I don't know why I do what I do. Like
Mm.
that, and that's been something throughout my life, but especially music career that has plagued me in a way because I don't understand why. I just know I know it's weird. I know why I do it, but at the same time, I don't know why I am who I am and why I do things the way I do things and why I don't just do things in the way that other people do things. I don't know why. It just is. It just is. And
Yeah.
that is could be a issue, not just a good thing, but a bad thing because other people that I play with sometimes don't understand why I do things but it's just because I am who I am and I just do things this way. And part of me doing things this way is the reason why the band is the way it is. So
Yeah, man.
it's a difficult thing for me to do. But I know the one thing is at this point in my life, especially, I'm 100% comfortable with the person that I am. And I feel, you know, I have I mean, I never had a lot of fucks to give, but I definitely have no fucks to give now about anything. It's like because if regardless of what the band does at this point anywhere, I've accomplished almost every goal I made for myself. And I'm doing this now, you know, because I love to push myself. I love to do it and I get enjoyment from it. But and I push myself very hard too. It's like the standards that I have for doing things is could be obsessive too. It's like it's these things are it sucks, but like sometimes minor details are like super important to me. And it's like I don't care if people don't know these minor things that I'm doing or like I like to do things because I know it's the right thing to do because I know that this is either going to make the song better or even when I do things that are, you know, nice for people or I don't know, whatever. Well, you could put it as simple as if I donate to something, I don't want people to know that it's me. I just want to do it because I want to get the enjoyment of knowing being a part of making whatever I believe happen. I'm not doing it for the glory of saying, "Oh, I did this and I deserve credit for it" or whatever. It's like that's not the reason for doing it. Doing it is because I want to do it, and we
Mm.
want to do it as a band. And it's just a
Essentially,
yeah,
yeah, the moment it leaves your heart is the moment that the success has already happened because you've expressed it and you've put it out there. And yeah, I think
yeah.
that's a powerful thing, man.
And I mean, a lot of people that I know really, really, really enjoy um enjoy getting credit for everything that they do. But for me, it's like it's not that important to me. It's nice. I don't complain about it, but I'd rather have people come to me and tell me that something I did meant something to them instead of me reminding everybody all the time of all the contributions I made to death metal. Because
Mm.
it's funny, but when I talk like recently in the last couple of years, since I moved to North Carolina, I reconnected with Henry Veggie and the other main guy in Revenant at the time, and
Okay.
it was his band that I was playing in. But um, he reminded me of stuff, all these crazy contributions that I made that were super important for bands and underground at the time that I didn't even fucking think about or remember, because it was just me just being me or whatever. But it's nice to look back and realize that, these little contributions or whatever did make an impact, and someone remembered them, even if I don't remember them. I mean, it was a silly thing. I like a lot of times I see a lot of the old flyers that I made back in the day posted around the internet and stuff like that. And I only thought about it like the other day. I'm like, oh, it'd be kind of cool to let people know maybe that a lot of these flyers that were done for Revenant and mostly for Incantation were done. I done them. So I don't know if people care or not about it, but it's just like these weren't just done, out of nowhere. This was part of the whole process back then of like, I want to make a cool fucking flyer for people, so when they see this flyer, they know that this is going to be some of a special event to go to and stuff like that. And it's all just part of the thing. And I mean, people in bands all the time make flyers and stuff like that. But the difference with me is that I was like obsessive about it. I would try to make these really badass flyers. I wanted them to look a certain way. And I also was the same guy that was passing them out like a motherfucker. I mean, I made an impact for myself when I was playing in Revenant, that people used to call me Revenant Man, because I'm always passing out Revenant flyers. I'm always talking about the next show we're playing and trying to find, back then I'd have to go to like the mall and try to find metal people and be like, we're playing a show, like, you're a metalhead, I'm a metalhead, because there wasn't the internet, there wasn't all these easy ways to connect. You had to go places and find metalheads and try to like network and try to let them know about the show. And people that didn't even know themselves started calling me Revenant Man. And at the time I didn't even think much of it, but the fact that I made such an impact in that band, at that time, is important. But I don't sit around thinking about the importance that I made, or, and really so many of the bands from our era, especially from the New York, New Jersey area, they don't like to say that, in some way I had a part in that, and it's not that I want to take credit for it or whatever, but I find it quite interesting that some people shy away from the fact that everything they did came up from themselves. Like they want, I mean, they shy away from the fact that they didn't come up with everything themselves, that they were influenced or inspired or helped out by somebody. And it's, for me, I look at it as it's an important thing to let people know that, this didn't come up from nowhere. Like a lot of this, like I always, if in most interviews, if the topic comes up, I bring up my former band Revenant, not because it's cool to say I played in a band before Incantations, because it was such an important part of my upbringing and gave me all the tools I needed. And I learned so much from myself on my determination, everything, that it gave me that inspiration to move when everybody at that time thought that I was making the stupidest decision of my life, because Revenant was about to get to a higher level as a band and get possibly signed and stuff like that. There's a bunch of great things that were on the works for Revenant, but I decided within myself I had to leave. But still, that time was so important in my just learning about bands and stuff like Henry Vegian from Revenant, Jim Plotkin from Regurgitation, Old Lady Drivers, Hux, another friend of ours, played in Bambona Contention back then, and he plays in a bunch of popular bands now. I always forget. It's more of a hardcore thing. But those people were super important in making me into the person, or exposing me to stuff and learning from, to be who I am. And it's like, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with letting people know these things? I mean, they deserve the praise and credit for what they did. I don't lose any of my underground credit by saying that I learned about, I don't know, the fucking Death Strike demo from Henry Vegian and didn't, you know, just know about it because I'm all knowing metalhead, It's like you learn stuff
Sure.
from people, and
Yeah.
you should put on a pedestal these people to some extent because they deserve the credit, especially if you have success. I mean, I also credit a lot of my influences from like WMSC radio. Was a college radio station that was probably around 84 to I probably listened to 84 to about 87 or something like that. And I mean, I learned about a lot about metal because they were like the the premier underground tape traders at that time also had a college radio show, and they would just put so much stuff out there that was mind blowing to me, from a regular metalhead that might have been into the basics of metal, and then I heard this stuff on top of it, and it just made me grow. And all these little they're all little pieces of the puzzle of my history, and that stuff's super important. I mean, and I'll be talking about that in the documentary and
Great.
the book and stuff like that too, because it's important, and it might be interesting to the newer generation because with the internet, it's a totally different world than how you hear music. But
I was going to
for
bring
me,
that
it's a
up
positive.
actually because the whole thing of what you mentioned about Revenant and everything that you were coming up with back then with the flyers and whatnot, that was an era where internet did not exist. There is no social media, there is no Facebook, there's not even any Photoshop as far as I'm aware to be making
No,
those
no Photoshop.
flyers
Those
or
are all cut
anything.
and paste.
There we
I used to
go.
go to the copy place and copy this and copy that and then splice it together and then try to fix it. Like if the copy got diminished a little bit, I'd go with a little marker and try to mark in the black spot, like the little white holes that come into black spots or whatever. I mean, it was a lot of attention to detail with all that stuff. And like, it wasn't like now where, you know, it's easy to be a casual death metal person and just listen to stuff on YouTube or Spotify or something. Now, back then, it was like everything took work. I had to get to the flea market or drive to this place, go to these record stores, put up flyers. It was like a weekly thing of like you made the rounds everywhere, plus going to shows, going to hangouts, going to parties, anything. You had to be involved in the scene if you wanted to do anything. And plus, I wanted to be involved in the scene because it wasn't just about the band and the music. It's like these were people I related to. And I would just want to hang out with people that have like-minded, opinions or ideas on stuff. Without the internet, it's way harder to find people.
Yeah.
I'd have to go to the local arcade or something and meet some other metalheads there, and then realize, oh fuck, you know the band Deceased? That's awesome. I'm a fan of Deceased too, and kind of make friendships that way. It's just a different world. But I mean, I feel fortunate for it. I mean, I love the way the internet is now, and the way the promotion is different. But back then, I think it gave me fundamentals that are important to get to where I am as a musician and band member. If I didn't have to work so damn hard for it early on, but I worked hard for it in a positive way. It's not like I was pissed off about it. I was happy. I was like, okay, another day to fucking do everything towards, playing music or learning about music. I mean, I did my history on bands. I knew and if I liked the band, it was important to know as much as I possibly could about them. So if I talked about them, I knew what I was talking about. And, also just, everything. I was just doing everything that I could possibly do to engross myself in the scene, but it wasn't just because I wanted to promote the band. It's because I wanted to gather knowledge and I wanted to know. I didn't give a
Yeah.
fuck about any of my schoolwork, but I could tell you, the list of bass players that played in a certain band, or where some ridiculous demo that nobody knows of is at, or I would read fanzines religiously, but when it came to any school book or whatever, it would just be like it'd go one, I'd read it and just go out the ear or whatever.
Oh
I
man,
didn't
that's
want
so relatable. I was exactly in the same boat. I drove my parents absolutely insane for a while, until they eventually realized, they were like, "Oh yeah, he's just metals his life, he's gone." It was just like I would literally fucking sit in the middle of a math exam, and then all I could think about was some death metal riff I heard earlier, or like I particularly
yeah,
remember one time. I think I might have been about 15 at the time, and it was ironic because they used to make us do the school exams in this, like it was like an Islamic praying room, but that they would convert it so they would have all these different benches, and then we would sit on those and do our exams, because it was like a larger area. And I remember one exam, I just completely like fucked it up because all I could think about was this one Cannibal Corpse riff that just kept like going in loops in my head over and over and over, and I just kept trying to play it in the air, and then like 2 hours
yeah.
went by, and I ended up getting like the worst grade possible on that, but I have zero shame in that. I'm actually proud of it, and
Well,
I feel
yeah.
like, yeah,
In
there's
school,
there's
I
a thing
mean,
in common.
if you'd see my pants in school, I used to draw logos on my pants,
Right.
during class. I just was so out of it. There's somewhere, one of the old Revenant photos. I have a pair of pants that has Revenant written down to one side of my you know blue denim jeans, and I remember putting like the Sadist logo on there and some other band
Sadist.
logos. I
Yes.
forget some band, just whatever. But it was just like, you know, no, you were frowned upon because school wasn't. It didn't inspire me at all. I didn't see where it was really helping me or whatnot. So it was just like, you know, I would just lose interest and I'd start like, yeah, just drawing on either my notebook or whatever, like logos or something like that, or just, you sometimes even coming up with riff ideas and just tabbing it out on paper and stuff. So yeah, I mean, I'm not against school, but for me, it just became a certain point where it was just like, let's just do whatever I got to do to get past this.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
could concentrate on like my life. And at that time though, like, and maybe you could relate, is that my vision and my ideas were so, yeah, like I mentioned before, so different than what you're expected to like in school.
Hmm.
Like in school they're telling you, okay, you got to work, think about your future, and let's find okay, if you're not going to do academic, let's find a trade for you or something like that. And it's just like I'm like struggling to try to find something, and I say, well, I just want to play music. I was like, yeah, but that's not a career, it's more of a hobby. And I'm like, huh, not really. I'm thinking to myself, it's like I would rather struggle my whole life doing what I love doing than just being a part of this machine that they're kind of telling me to be a part of. It, it just wasn't right for me. And you know back then it was really controversial because it is, you're just expected to
Hmm.
fall into place, and it's all like, oh, it's just a fad, you get done with it, blah blah blah. I mean,
It's
I
just
think
a
even my
phase.
parents, yeah, phase or something like that. And it's like, I know my parents started like once I got out of high school and I started really, I mean, I was getting, when I started Incantation, things got crazy, and I started getting like mail out the fucking wazoo at our house. Like, it's like so much mail each day, fanzines, interviews I was doing, people wanting to buy demos, people just inquiring about the bands. And my parents were just like, huh, like looking at it,
Yeah.
like there'll be like a letter from Lithuania and a letter from I don't know, Paraguay and maybe Malaysia or Germany or whatever, but it was just like all over the world. And it was just, my mom and dad were like, huh, maybe he has something with this music thing, because people are like getting like fan mail and stuff. Like they're looking at it like it's regular fan mail, and it was to an extent, but it was more like demo trading, like, or yeah, doing interviews or just people telling me they liked the demo or something. This is a different world back then, but they were able to see that. And I think at a certain point, they just like, they embraced it a little more because they could see that even though they have no idea and understand what the fuck I'm doing with my music, that I have some sort of talent somewhere that resonates with people. So I was pretty lucky at that point, but it was a struggle though at school, and just always hearing that I need a backup. And it's just like, I get it, but the backup takes time, and I don't have time. I got to spend this time working on my A game, not worrying about plan B or C. I don't. It's like I worry about plan B or C when A fails because I want to spend all my time on A.
I'm with you, man. You gotta take that leap of faith. Obviously, you mentioned about how you basically sort of had to fight to essentially kind of get the approval that, oh yes, I am doing something legitimate here. I can, on a personal note, I can completely relate to that, because like when I was, I think I must have been around 16 years old. I had lots of trouble with school, and up until I discovered metal, I was actually doing well. But it was just kind of like once I found Metallica, it was kind of game over. Everything just completely went to shit from there. as I think it does for like a lot of us ADHD kids. But
yes,
I think. And don't get me wrong as well. Like you said earlier as well, I'm not against school. I actually nowadays I would advocate more for someone like being able to create their own thing and then and knowing what they're doing and stuff. Because it can be hard out there. But I was kind of essentially in the same position that I just wasn't doing great at school. And I essentially, like the last year that I was actually still in Iran, I failed my whole high school completely, and it was a case of repeating it. But it was around that time that my parents did realize that, oh yeah, I was just completely just, like metal was my life, that just like they did with yourself when they saw the mails coming in, they were like, okay, yeah, we have to, he's got no future in Iran. If he wants to be a metal musician, he's not supposed to be here, so they essentially helped me to get away from there. But it probably didn't help that during the last year of high school in Iran, I may or may not have kicked a bottle of piss at our Quran teacher specifically. So
good for you.
Thanks.
It's a good start.
Yeah, it's the kind of shit that can get you killed, but I think in the end I think they had pretty serious discussions. And the reason why I think they didn't report it is because it would have drawn a lot of kind of attention. Because like you don't fuck with Quran over there, and and especially in that context. And I think they just didn't do it because it would have really like ruined the whole school's reputation if they wanted to report that to any kind of authority systems, and that probably would have been very fucked by that, but. It's just one of them things. Live to tell the tale.
Yeah, well, I agree. I mean, I'm not against school whatsoever. I think it just, I think the reality of it is besides learning the basic fundamentals or whatever, it's not always the right path for everybody, and it's kind of not always, it's not catered to your personal journey. It's generic stuff that you're learning. That's, the curriculum is the curriculum, and stuff like that. And for me personally, it didn't, it didn't coincide properly, and, but yeah, it's crazy too, because I'm more interested in stuff that I was learning in school now because I'm doing it on my own, because I want to. It's good. Like I guess part of my personal problem was I just, it's tough for me to do things that I just don't want to do or don't care about or don't see the importance of. I sometimes need to be sold on something like, and not just like, lame reasons, but like I want to learn about stuff that I feel is interesting or this is cool, or like there's a reason to learn it, not just learn it because they tell you that you're supposed to learn it. It's like, I don't know, part of my rebellious streak sometimes just like locks up when people tell me, you have to do this because this is the way society is, the way it is. For me, it's like,
Why?
okay, click. I turn my head off. Then it's like, whatever, because I don't want. I believe. I mean, like I said, I don't believe it's a bad thing because I think most people it works for great, but just not. Not everybody either learns the same way or has the same ambitions in life. And I know when you're that young, you don't really know 100% what you want to do. I'm one of the few lucky people that knew what he wanted to do pretty early on and was able to achieve it to some extent. But most people don't. So I know they want you to learn as much as possible. And like I said, I don't disagree with it, not against it one bit. But I do believe that it would be more helpful if they were able to find a way to, tailor it a little more to individual. But I know it's impossible because it's a group thing and socializing and all that crap. But still, though, it's just one template is not good for everybody. I was one of the few people where it just wasn't it was more wasting my time, and I felt just like it was taking away from metal. Because I mean, what, that 6 hours or whatever I was in school a day was 6 hours that I couldn't be making flyers, playing my guitar, or trying to write music, recovering from a show or whatever. It's like it's interfering with like all the stuff that I want to do that is part of my who I am. And I knew some way music was going to be a big part of my life, but I didn't always 100% know it was going to be playing in this band and doing it forever. But I knew it was important enough to me where it was something that couldn't just be put aside and been like, okay, your music stuff's cute or whatever, that's nice. Now, read American history or something like that. I was like, I could care less about it. I, know more about it now than I do when I was going to school, like learning it.
Sure. Absolutely, man. Yeah, listen, John, it's honestly, man, it's been such a fucking pleasure to actually speak to you and kind of pick your mind on things. I mean, truly, this is exactly, perhaps by this point it's ad nauseum, but the thing I like so much about what Incantation does and just the characteristics of yourself is just the authenticity of it, and the passion that's behind it. And also, just a quick note to what you were saying about how you observe the past and your relationship with it. I think a lot of what you were talking about the past is, I guess, very much the way a lot of people look at it, where they glorify the past. I guess that's a bit of a retirement type of thinking. Yes. Whereas for you, you're right in it. You're right in the battlefield, and you've got arguably probably got the most going that there's ever been. And you're right there at the front lines of the whole incantation business. Is there anything that I mean, I know that you mentioned earlier that you guys have recorded a new album, correct? Which you're gonna be putting out at some point. Do you have a date for that or anything at all?
No, we're just waiting on a few final like artwork and stuff like that. So, but it's planning this year. It's probably going to be in the fall sometime, but I'm not exactly sure yet until it gets submitted. But most of it is all ready to go. It's just getting the final artwork. We're trying to do some, check out some final tweaks and stuff like that on it. And they're doing that. We're also been like, after we did this last album, we also decided to work on some older Doom songs that we never released. We were back in was it 2003, 2004, or something like that. We were in talks with Southern Lord Records. We wanted to do a Doom album, like a Doom Incantation album or something like that.
That's cool.
And over the pandemic, after we finished recording this stuff, we decided that we were gonna try to pick that stuff up. It was actually Kyle's idea to pick up some of those old songs. And of course, I started getting super inspired and started writing a bunch of new stuff. So we have like, I don't know exactly, but we're going on a good 70 minutes of music of like doom stuff that we have in the works. I don't know exactly, how it's going to be released. It's probably just going to be something like a doom incantation or doom cantation or something like that. Because we do want to make sure people know that it's not it's not a typical album, but it's an album that we've been wanting to do for quite some time, and it just never was enough. We'll say enough downtime to actually focus on it and stuff. So that's something else that's in the works too. And on top of that, I'm getting fire to really write a lot of other new songs too. But I'm trying to contain that because I want to get the Doom stuff finished with first, because you got to do a lot of tracking for that still, and it's difficult when your mind races and wants to like work on other stuff, but you're trying to finish other stuff up. So I have to try to just stay away from getting too inspired, to write new stuff. It's funny that it sounds retarded, but it's really annoying to me sometimes because I'm trying to focus on what I'm doing and my brain's thinking like, man, I have this great idea for a riff here. Why don't we do this? And it's like, no, I'm trying to track this song. This weird riff thing starts like, because one thing that I didn't bring up, because we didn't really talk about the music as far as creating it, but and I think a lot of musicians get this at a certain point, but I start to think in music like after all these years, like it's just like an extra sense you have or something like that. So it's like part of my expression is just these music notes and these ideas that come to my head, and it's not like it's not something I can control necessarily or think. It's just like it's like talking or seeing or whatever, hearing. I just do it. So it's great, but it also gets annoying as fuck because you can't just keep compiling these ideas and not actually put them together. And then if you have long periods of time where you're working on stuff, things can get really muddy because you're thinking of the old stuff, you're thinking of new stuff, you're like, and the new stuff keeps wanting to like eat, because that's more exciting. But then you're like, but this old idea is good, so let's fucking work on this and like get into that headspace. And I sometimes have to force myself to do that. I know it's funny because just recently, after we finally finished the mixing for the album that's coming out later this year, Kyle's like, don't start writing stuff just yet. 'Cause he knows as soon as we finish mixing an album, all I do is critique the fuck out of it and say, okay, let's write a bunch of new songs that are like the answer to the ones I just wrote on that album, because I want to. It's like I always listen back and I'm like, oh, could have did this. Oh, but then the ideas start coming. But we have a whole other album of like 70 minutes worth of music we have to work on, and he's trying to like stop me from writing new stuff, and I want to stop writing new stuff too. I mean, it's funny. It sounds funny, and it sounds like a problem people only wish they had. But it is a little bit annoying, because you want to stay focused on, what you're doing. But that happens like all the time, even back in the day. I don't know, on almost all the albums, it's like a week before going in the studio. It's like, that song, blah, blah, blah. I have an idea. So let's just change everything around, like this riff here, that riff, and I'll add this riff to it. And it's like, and everyone's like, it's a week before the fucking studio. We were practicing this song for months. And it's like, yeah, I know, but trust me, it's going to sound great. And then we do it, and they're like, fucking asshole, sounds fucking great, But so the people I jam with know my insanity, and Kyle actually stopped me a little bit from doing that on the Sect of Divinities album, because that was the same thing I was talking to you about before, where I listened to it and I was like, fuck, maybe this riff sucks or this isn't good. But he tries to contain me sometimes, so I just, it's almost like yeah, ADHD thing or something where I'm just like all over the place. My brain's thinking musically, and I'm trying to get my brain to stay on track,
Were you just shooting out riffs, man? Listen, this what you said actually resonated a lot with me because it's like this. To put things into perspective, for anyone listening, think of it like this: when you write a song, when you come up with a riff or an idea, there's a lot of different steps, which includes a lot of labor that's involved in bringing that thing into life and for it to become what it is, right? And this is why bands, like someone like yourself who's constantly just like pouring out death metal, it's just like you're walking death metal, and there's just riffs coming out constantly. Even in that case, you still have like generally have like a couple of years in between records, a minimum. And the thing is, you gotta write an idea. That idea has to fit into another song, or you can write a song around that idea, but then you need different ideas. They all have to fit there. That's just the core idea. Then you have to practice that with the band, then add that whole energy to it. Everyone has to learn it. And then you have to record it in the studio. Then you have to produce it. Then you have to get all the albums printed. And then you have to do the promotion for it. Then you have to release it. Then you gotta play it live. There's a lot of different things involved in just bringing those ideas to life, which is a magical process. I think it's fucking incredible. It's a very inspiring thing to be a part of. But that's also why, as great as it is to be writing ideas all the time, sometimes you just want to find things that I think the key word would be to commit to an idea. And then that's what you choose to release and put out there, and I, like I said, just based on the last record you guys put out, I think you committed to all the right ideas, based on what we heard. But I'm very much looking forward to what the next one's going to be like as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's yeah, our process is very similar to that. The only thing I'd like to bring up is like a lot of times I'll have an idea, a shell. I call it a shell of an idea. It'll be the basics of the song. So I like to bring that shell of an idea to practice. Have everybody hear the shell. Try to explain what I'm thinking of the song, and then have everybody kind of contribute to it and make it something special. And to do that is it's a fun process, but also could be difficult because you're writing a song, you have a shell, then you bring it to practice, and then you work on it, and then all of a sudden the concept of the song changes a little bit sometimes, and sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. But when it's good, you're like, oh fuck, okay, now I got to take this idea and totally change it around. Then you start mixing things up more because you want to expand on this idea that you had, but then someone else came in and added something to that to make it a super cool thing. But then that super cool thing maybe takes away from the old version, but adds to a new version of the song. So it's like an amoeba or something. Like the way it just keeps kind of like going around. There's a certain point where you just have to say, this is it, this is good, or just stop it, it's done, because you could just drive yourself crazy because the possibilities of creating something are pretty much endless. Of what you could do. And you have to just know, okay, the concept of the song is this, the song sounds like this, the song is done, and Kyle again is good at that, where he will be going through a song and he'll be like, I think we're done, and it's good because I need that, because I'll be thinking about, like I said, the minutia of it like a motherfucker, because those little things that no one even knows or cares about, I obsess over like a motherfucker. I mean, it's annoying, but it's the same part of me. It's a creative part of me that also writes riffs when I don't want to be writing riffs. Like I spend a lot of time trying to numb out my brain from thinking, not numbing out with drugs or anything, but just not thinking about music so much, because sometimes the more I think about music, the more I get inspired to write, and then the floodgates open. Yeah, and then it's when I got to concentrate on playing a live show or getting ready for a tour, because like I'll be practicing the fucking set, and all of a sudden I'll start getting riff ideas, and like motherfucker, or I'll start practicing, just trying to do like generic practicing of like some exercise. I'm trying to get better on guitar. What do? I start thinking of riff ideas and forget about playing that part. So it's a really a frustrating thing for me to have to deal with. I think a lot of musicians probably have a similar thing. I don't think it's you know exclusive to me, but I just know for me it does get frustrating. And then yeah, once we record the album, I'm thinking, hmm, maybe that original idea I had was better, or maybe this is better, because at the end of the day, even though we demo the songs, you just don't know 100% how the final thing's coming out till it comes out, and then you're kind of stuck with it or whatever. So it's the whole process is insane, but at the same time, yeah, like I said, I try to look at it these days as like it's a snippet of time. This is what we felt like. Just own it, And it's like, don't sit around thinking about it, because they could think about, there's, bands, they re-release albums, from back in the day. And I know they do it sometimes because of licensing deals and stuff like that. But like, I don't know, I'll say like Exodus is Bonded by Blood. It was like the original to me is pretty much a perfect thrash album,
Yeah.
and it didn't need to be redone. No offense to Rob Duke, at all, but it didn't need to be redone, that album, and it was done cleaner, and more modern
Modern
sounding.
production, yeah.
But I really, if I would have preferred it if they just did the Bonded by Blood live, and you heard them playing it now live, than doing a super polished studio version of it, because some of what made that album great was, say, the imperfections of it, or just the vibe of the sound of that time and stuff like that. That's why, like, you know, redoing redoing old songs now, even though we've done it in the past a couple times, it's really something we don't prefer not to do, because just let it be what it was. We did two songs on, I think that already, I don't think that we put them on the 30th. It was on our 25th anniversary release. We did a re-release of a Profanation and Holy Massacre, but it wasn't because it was personal reasons why, not because we wanted to outdo the original version, but we wanted for a 25th anniversary to include um, the first two songs we wrote as a band, and we wanted to put on us playing a song, two songs, like more of a sentimental reason on being on there, where it wasn't about trying to outshine the original or something like that, which I think is always a bad thing, especially when on your classic album. Like, for me, out Bonded by Blood is like a perfect thrash album, and it's like, just I'd rather hear them write good songs than record on a vinyl the same fucking songs.
Yeah, I completely understand that, man. Just as the example of Bonded by Blood, like that album is, I do agree. I think it's like, it's essentially kind of perfect because it captures that sort of spirit of the Exodus at that time in the early 80s, where these guys just like full of piss and vinegar, and it's just all
Yeah,
like sort of encapsulated in that one
it's a
record,
beautiful thing.
Yes, yes, it really is, and it's like, you kind of like, you watch some of like the old VHS footage from that time as well, and then you kind of put the two and two together, because obviously I
Yeah,
wasn't around at that time to see them, but it's I think you do get the full experience in that sense, and like you said, better to just do it live and then give it the modern homage rather than just try and redo the thing, because they'll never be the same for every reason that you and I have just discussed for the last couple of hours or so. But yeah, man. Yeah, I think it's probably. I mean, to be honest with you, man, I could probably talk to you all day. But I think now might be a good time to try and wrap things up. And you've obviously got. So you said you've recorded a new Incantation record. You might have a new Doom record coming up. You're currently working on a documentary, but you're also going to be working on a book. I mean, what have you got going on? Oh, I just remembered. You've got a new record with Tribe of Pazzuzu coming on the 6th of March, correct?
Well, yeah, but the Tribe of Pazzuzu, this album I didn't contribute to. I contributed to their first two EPs, but not the album. It's just the timing just wasn't. The time when they wanted to do it was right in the middle of our touring time. But definitely, if they ask for my contribution again, I'll definitely do it because it's more of a just a fun enjoyment thing to do. To work with.
Got a bit of a super group, essentially, isn't it? I know that's a bit of an overused word, but essentially it kind of is, isn't it?
I mean, I didn't check. I've been kind of out of the loop with that. I didn't know if they still had Flo playing drums on the album, but the album that the EPs I was on, it had Flo, and then what was it? The dude from Malefication and Nick from Soulstorm on it. And it was a fun. I mean, it's a fun thing to be a part of, and I'm not against it. Like I said, doing it again, it just has to work in with time. It's been really difficult. And also, I'm hoping to do another Beast of Revelation album too. That was a really fun thing because that was something where I didn't really contribute riff wise, but I was able to contribute vocal wise for it. So it was like nice to do an album where I'm, the whole songs are already structured and done. Maybe I think on the album I tossed in a couple of harmony ideas or something, but it was basically they, AJ and Bob did all the basic tracking and stuff, and he just gave me the songs and helped me with some lyrics. I wrote some of the lyrics for it and stuff, and it was a fun thing to do, and I really enjoyed doing an album like that where it was just concentrating on the vocal aspect and just kind of push my vocals to places where I didn't really go before with Incantation and stuff. Because for Beast of Revelation there's no previous template, so I figured, well, that would be cool to throw in some more like just agonizing sounds with my voice and stuff like that fit in with that. So yeah, just in general, it's great to be a part of all this stuff, man. I wish I could get more time to do more projects, because there's a couple of other things I have that have been like sidelined for years, but it's just so difficult to commit to all these different ideas with so much going on. It's like with the book and the documentary, it's kind of taking a lead role in a lot of my extra time on top of doing the normal band stuff I usually do.
It's one of them things. It sounds like you could do with having a few clones of yourself at least, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I have a habit of working, like always having stuff to do, so I don't know. Maybe there's one day that I'll wake up and I'll have no things on my list to do. That would be awesome, but it seems like it's impossible these days. Every day I wake up and it seems like I have a 2 months worth of work I have to do.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I hear you 100%. Well, with that in mind, I do very much appreciate you coming on the podcast, man, and giving us your time. It's been a real blast for me to talk to you. And honestly, like, I feel like after talking to you right now, I just want to go and play a gig and fucking annihilate people. So thanks for the for the fire.
When you go there, just be like, I'm gonna kill every fucking poser here.
Yes.
It's like you gotta go for it. You got just all out assault. Especially, I mean, the people that are into it, you go with, but the people you aren't into it, you got to make them remember you.
100%, man. There's no
Remember you as
choice.
those assholes, and that wouldn't let go. Would just pushing them until they either had to leave because they hate it so much, or just at least respect you for trying your hardest to turn them over.
Absolutely, man. I think there's a few who will never forget. Let's just say that.
Yeah,
Awesome,
maybe
man.
one quick thing too is what you're saying is right though. I mean, and I guess I realize that more and more the older I get, but you know, every moment in life needs to be the most important moment in life.
Mhm.
Don't take don't take your time on earth for granted, because it's not even just dying because you're old or something, but you could die for any reason, and you want to make sure every moment is you being the best that you could be and being making an impact, so when you do eventually die, or you know that you accomplished something, you made something happen, you've touched people's lives in some way, and for myself, I can live my life really content to know that I've inspired a lot of people, and the band too, to other people in the band too, of course. But for myself, I have inspired people and made impact on the scene that I grew up with and cherished. That I actually made a big impact in that, which is something that I do feel proud of, and I think is something I should feel proud of because you know it's something I've worked for my whole life.
I think your presence in the death metal scene in itself is a butterfly effect of its own, which I think has sort of you can follow I suppose the trails of it, and how it's affected the development of things, and all the respect in the world to you for that, man, and also respect for staying true and doing what you believe in, man. It's like I said, it's very inspiring, and yeah, once again, thank you so much for jumping on the podcast.
Thank you.
And yeah, to everyone else who's listened so far as well. Hope you guys enjoy this. It's been a pretty inspiring one. So
Cheers.
go ahead and blast some fucking incantation, and yeah, let them kick your ass. See you guys in the next one.